Montreal happens, you agree to do it, you agree to participate, but Vince McMahon tells you cannot anywhere publicly tell anybody that you knew about it. You had to pretend that, like Bret, you didn't know it was going to happen. The next day on TV, when you guys get there, Mick Foley said he went home. He didn't want to come back. What was it like for you the next day? Because it's still very raw, pardon the pun, but like you get to TV and you've got to now completely keep up this lie to everybody, knowing that one day if you tell the truth, they might be pissed that you've lied to them for years, like good friends or whatever. What was it like the next day when you got to TV after Survivor Series?
Well, sure. Clearly, you're worried about going. I mean, but only just from like I can, it's one of those things that I wonder what it's going to be like. What's the atmosphere, temperature going to be like? The only thing, but as far as what everybody thought, and hand to God, I didn't care. I asked about one dude, and when I went in, I said, "Where's Taker?" I said, "Where's Mark?" And they said he's in there with Vince. And I said, "All right." Because that was, like I said, because it's the same, and you have to understand, we've been there for the longest time. We say, yada yada yada. It's two very different guys, very different personalities. But by this time, even then, we knew that, that there were two sort of pillars within the WWE that were going to be, for the most part, everything was sort of built around. And that's the only person I just need to know where he's at on this. You know what I mean? I just need to know where he's at, because if there's somebody you got to sit there and have a chat with, it's going to be him. We're going to have to, for all of this to move forward, he and I are going to have to find a way to, get simpatico on this. And clearly Vince knew the same thing, and that's why he was the first guy, he talked to the next day. And to this day, because it's one of those things that so much has passed that we've never even discussed it. I've never asked him what did he tell you in there? But he, I remember waiting on him, and he came out. He walked up to me, he goes, "We're cool." Off he went. I went, "All right." And then it was like, it was all both barrels loaded. After that, it was whatever it is they wanted. We went full gear, and but yeah, I mean. And honestly, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but again, it wasn't, it wasn't fun by any stretch. I mean, that's one of the things that I think over the years that it even, Bret and I both, for us both to get sort of past our own sort of personal feelings about it, I think when we finally started putting ourselves in the other person's shoes, I think that's what helped you get it all over with. I do. I honestly think when Bret realized that, like, okay, what he heard me say enough times, like, hey, what? It's not like I was thrilled to be that dude. I mean, it isn't like I ever, when I was, 12 years old, 15 years old, I sat at home going, I don't want to just be a pro wrestler. I want to be a pro wrestler, and then when I'm in it, I want everybody in that industry to hate my guts and be the most hated guy in the wrestling business. You know what I mean? That is what you hope for. And when I would leave this and the show and that image and that kind of junk and go back to San Antonio, Texas, and just be Shawn Hickenbottom and sit there in the mirror and realize, damn, dude, you're the most hated guy in wrestling. It sucked. It was absolutely, again, it wasn't anything you aspired to do. It wasn't what you dreamed of being when you were 12. And so and I think, it took people a long time to, because you do. I mean, it's very, you get cut and, all you can do is think about your own wound. You don't really think about, whatever the guilt and all that junk that the other person may have, felt about, doing that to you or why they did it and stuff like that. And again, not that I'm looking for anybody to cry me a river, don't get me wrong. It was just, it's not like it was a blast. It wasn't, and like I said, so one of those things that, I don't know, you're a grown man in a grown business, you got to man up, do it, and you go on. But like all I ever tell people is like, don't get me wrong, it's not like it was, that's the gig you're looking for. It wasn't.
And one of the biggest criticisms of you as a wrestler, I mean, nobody's ever said, Shawn Michaels is a bad wrestler. But when we announced this tour, I remember there was 3 specific people from Glasgow, and they had tweeted us and said, Is he bringing his smile? Is he bringing his smile? Because of the Lost His Smile promo. And
he smiled. I thought you looked like snail. What the? Sorry, I got you. So for us, it's smile. But I got you. Smeal.
So when you lost your smile,
The smeal.
but that's one of the criticisms is.
That's what I've noticed too. It isn't It's And I'm just kidding.
And Bruce Pritchard too. He doesn't know. Yeah, I meet all these guys. I meet so many of these guys, from Vince Russo. Bruce Pritchard is another one. Jim Cornette is another one. They all take credit for. They were all involved in the screw job. They all had a hand in it. They all were part of it. And it's such bullshit. When I watch stuff, I go, Eric Bischoff didn't have anything to do with what happened that day, and Vince Russo doesn't know anything about what happened that day. He was like nobody. He had zero involvement in what I was doing with Vince, and had no idea what my contract was. I don't think Vince Russo even knew what my issues were with the company. And same with so many of the guys that they have people that they want to be involved, like Vince Russo and Bruce Pritchard wish they were part of the screw job, and that they could have been involved in that, and that they could have had a say, and like, yeah, screw them, they wish they could say that, but they had zero to do with it. But today they want to take credit for it, like that they were involved in it. Like, to me, it's like taking credit for being part of an assassination or something. It's like, I don't know why you'd want to throw your hat in the ring and say I was part of it, but they all seem to want to, convince themselves that they are that important. But I don't think they were. I know Jim Cornette, who's always been nice to me and a good friend to me, but he had zero to do with anything that happened with me in WWF. And for him to think that he had some kind of stake in it, or he was one of the guys that put what happened down, like what happened to me was part of his, he had some say in it, is just hogwash. They had nothing to do with anything to do with me, period. And,
So with AEW, you showed up at Double or Nothing. What led to you showing up there? Are we going to see you in AEW again? Like, what's the story behind that?
Oh yeah, that question. I'm sorry, I get off on tangents, but AEW, I don't really follow that much wrestling like I used to, and like I said, when I offered my services to Vince and Triple H in 2010, and it was in Toronto, I said I'd be happy to work with you guys on matches and storylines and help you with the, I got lots of ideas. And basically it was like, they said they call me, and they never called me ever on it. They I think it was like they waited for me to hear me say like, hey, Bret Hart might actually want to come back. And it's like, so they just purposely never brought me back and kind of just left me on the sidelines, which is fine. I don't know that I miss it that much, but it was more of an offering. And what happened with AEW was I didn't really know much about AEW, but I have a lot of respect for Chris Jericho and a lot of the guys that are there. And I was actually going to Las Vegas for just a personal appearance, and I was doing a signing there. And then they called me and asked me if I would show up at the AEW show. And I didn't even know what it was. And they were going to, basically it was like, if you walk across the street from your hotel and just walk into the building and walk out to the ring and hold the belt up, we'll pay you X amount of money to do that. And I'm in Vegas anyway. So it wasn't really an intended slight to anybody. It was just a chance to work with a new wrestling company and maybe give them a little boost with my name if I can, and be part of me, maybe meet some new wrestlers and some new guys. And that was pretty innocent, but I will say that I very much enjoyed working with them, and I wish them all the best. I think they're so important to wrestling today. I think AEW has got a way better approach right now. I think when I watch Raw today, there's just so many promos and all written by the same guy in the back that's writing out a bunch of stuff. It all sounds the same. I know Steve Austin said that for years, but it's true. It sounds the same, looks the same, tastes the same. I'm so sick of it. Whenever I see somebody stand in the ring doing a promo, I just click channels right away. I can't watch it. The wrestlers are great. The wrestling is great, but I don't know where they can go with wrestling today. It's all it's so unbelievable.
Anyone that thinks that it was a work is either an idiot or they're just trying to provoke a reaction. Clearly, anyone that knows anything about me knows that's a pretty touchy subject, and I went through a lot in my lifetime. And the screw job is, I look at it was a victory for me. I mean, I got nothing but integrity, and everything I said was true, and everything I talk about it, I can name who was in the room when I knocked Vince out. I can mark with an X. I could mark with an X where everybody sat when it happened and what their reactions were, including Shawn's. And all I know is Kevin Nash wasn't there. If you want to know what really happened to the screw job, ask Undertaker. He's one of the last guys alive that was in the room. And you might not get a straight answer from Shawn. Maybe you will. I think you could. But the truth is, I have no reason to lie about anything. And for someone like Kevin Nash or 1-2-3 Kid or any of these guys that always talk about, like even Earl Hebner now was talking about it was a work. And it's like, Earl, come on, are you for real? I wish it was a work. I wish that we'd planned it all out and that I would come back 10 years later when I'm old and wrestle Vince McMahon and beat him with a chair. I think it was, I wish I had that much foresight and we could plan and book all this stuff so far advanced, but it's clearly a stupid thought.
Months leading up to the screw job, I did everything I could do to bury the hatchet with Shawn and smooth things out. I think me and Shawn kind of smoothed things out a little bit, even though I don't think it was sincere maybe on his end. But I tried to really, I apologize to him about things I said in my interviews about him, because even though I would go to Shawn all the time and say, Shawn, is it okay if I go out there and talk about you posing for Playgirl? Is that all right? He would always go, sure, go ahead. Go with it, and then he would watch me go out and say a bunch of stuff, and I'd come back to the dressing room, he looked like he was in tears, and he was so hurt by I was like, I remember kind of knowing, and I think I can say honestly that I knew I was zinging him and kind of getting under his skin with that stuff, but I think Shawn had a lot of problems in those days, and he wasn't the easiest guy to love either. So, I think as we got closer to the screw job, I was trying my best to kind of move forward with Shawn, and but I think actually when I wrestled SummerSlam and wrestled Undertaker and had that match, and when I spit on him, I remember telling him in the dressing room when we sort of planned it out, I said, I got to do something that would really piss you off. It has to be something serious. And we tried thinking of things, and if I said, I've spit on you, that would piss you off. And it's like, yeah, that would piss me off. And it's like, so I'll spit. I said, I won't spit on you. I said, I'll aim right for your shirt. I'll hit you right here. But you wrestle Undertaker for 30 minutes in a wrestling match, and it's like running a marathon or something. You're pretty frothy in there. And so the time came, and it was that's what I love about that match with Undertaker at SummerSlam. It's all about timing. There was like a split second that I had to spit, and if you watch that match, you can see me. I'm trying to find, my mouth is so dry. I'm trying to find something and it's like 3, 2, 1. I remember hocked out this horker. It was like 2 twin oysters. One hit Shawn right on the chest, like as planned, as specified, right on the chest, and the other one was tied and connected to it, but it flew up and hit him right on the face. It was hanging off Shawn's nose. If you remember when he was counting, he kept trying to wipe it off, but it was like was like the snot that wouldn't go away or the spit that wouldn't go away. And that wasn't intentional. And I knew, I said, that's going to start all the shit over again. I knew it. And I remember Shawn said, no problem and all that. But I think after he watched it on TV and it like reminded himself that it happened, I was like, yeah, that did piss me off. My relationship with Shawn at that time never got much better from that point. The spit kind of started the war all over again. But going back to your point was that I really think that I think I was right in everything I did related to the screw job and all that. I was right, and I had the right reason. Shawn had basically told me leading into that match, when I first found out we were wrestling, I came up to Shawn because me and Shawn were not really on talking terms. We'd had a little fisticuff, cat fight in the dressing room of, I don't know, February of that year. And this was like quite a ways later, but we were barely talking to each other. And he was refereeing that match. And I was trying to get on a better understanding with Shawn. And I was trying not to escalate tensions between us, trying to minimize them. And I remember I came up, he refereed one of my matches, a triple threat match in San Jose, California. And I came up to him and I said, Shawn, I heard, he shook my hand after the match, and he thanked me for the match. He goes, thanks for the match. And that was the first 3 words or dialogue that we'd had since we had a little cat fight, which was meant, I thought, took it as a sign of like, okay, we were finally kind of talking to each other again. And I said to Shawn, I said, I heard we're wrestling at Survivor Series in a couple of weeks from now. And I said, just want you to know, I have no problem losing to you, dropping the belt to you. Whatever they want to do is fine with me. I said, I just want you to know you're safe in the ring with me, that whatever issues we've had with each other, there won't be any fisticuffs, or you don't have to fear that maybe I'm going to kick you in the face and punch you out, or, because things like that can happen. I said, I've always been a professional, and I just want you to know whatever they want to do is fine with me. And Shawn looked at me and said, he goes, I appreciate that. I just want you to know I'm not willing to do the same thing for you. And that's where the screw job happened. Everything that happened after that, with those the Vice film documentary that came, Dark Side, they missed all of that. They're so stupid. You give them the interview that tells them all what really happened, and they're too stupid to even understand what. So they basically digressed and kind of told a more convoluted story about the screw job. But that was what it was all about. And when Vince said, no, I went and saw Vince 2 or 3 days later, and I said, he goes, yeah, we're thinking you're going to drop the belt to Shawn at Survivor Series. And I said, I'm not dropping the belt to Shawn. He just said to me 2 days ago that he would refuse to do the same thing for me. And in the wrestling business, when someone is not willing to feed your family and then comes to you and say, oh, but I want you to feed mine, it doesn't work like that. If you're not willing to do business with me, then I'm not willing to do business for you. And that's where the impasse came. And I always believed I was right. And I think it could have been figured out. Like I wasn't a real, difficult guy to cooperate with. And, I think in the end, Triple H and all them, Vince and them squeezed me out and pushed me out of the company. And I was like, okay. And Vince called me after I signed my contract with WCW, and he goes, I remember Vince called me the night before, like the night that my contract, it's at 12 o'clock midnight, I had to sign my deal or else kind of thing. And I called Vince and I said, I got WCW's contract. It just came through my fax machine. And I got it right there. All I got to do is sign it. And I called Vince and said, I don't want to sign this contract. I want to stay with WWF. And just tell me what you're going to do with me for the next, tell me what's in store for me in the next year or 2 or 3. What's my story going to be? And he said, well, this is what we're going to do. And I remember Vince laughing, like he had that Vince McMahon laugh and chuckle on the phone. And it was like he said, we're going to put you with Shawn. He beats you. Then we put you with Shawn again, another rematch, next pay-per-view after that, and he beats you. And we put you with Shawn. You keep challenging Shawn. He beats you 4, 5, 6 times in a row. And finally you say, Shawn, I want one more match. And if I don't beat you, I'm going to retire from wrestling. And so then I wrestle Shawn, and then I win that match. And that's what he said he had in mind for me. And I remember listening to it and I'm going, that doesn't sound very promising to me. It almost sounds like when it gets to that match that I'm supposed to win, that they'll screw me out of that and beat me or change their mind or whatever. So I kind of told me, like, you better get out, like, pack your bags and go to WCW because there's no plan. They're going to screw you here. Like, it was basically, we're going to screw you over as much as possible. And that's what we have in mind for you. So I signed, and then Vince called me the day after I signed with WCW, all happy that I signed, and they didn't have to worry about me anymore. And he goes, well, we're thinking we're going to drop the belt to Shawn. And I said, no. I said, I'll stick with what I said to you before. I'm not dropping the belt to Shawn because he wouldn't drop the belt to me. And he would refuse to do it for me. And that's where we had the impasse. Like I say, I think we could have probably worked it out, but I stood my ground. And I think...
You guys are friends now. You guys have been able to kind of get past that.
Me and Vince?
Yeah.
Well, I think what happened was I knocked him out. But I'll say this much. I think that knocking Vince McMahon out, he's always had respect for me ever since. It's respect. Like, you know, I think he respects guys that stand up to him. And Vince is a very dominant kind of guy and does... Vince is I have a lot of respect for Vince too. I also know he's pretty shady, but you know, and I think there's been a certain understanding from me and Vince that goes beyond everything. And I think Vince is like, he admires me for standing up to him. And I'm the only guy that ever punched him out. I always think of Jimmy Snuka shaking my hand one time and going, he goes, a lot of guys talk about knocking Vince McMahon out. He goes, the only one that ever did it